like I said, sometimes that creative just shows itself in, show me a graphic, show me an event. And I joke a lot that I may not always I'm not the Pinterest mom in the sense that I put the ideas together, but I can take all of your ideas and throw a killer party.
So you want to make an impact. You're thinking about starting a business, sharing your voice. How do women do it that handle motherhood, family, and still chase after those dreams? Well, listen each week as we dive into the stories of women who know. This is Call Me CEO. If you're wondering how to overcome how to get clients right now, you will love hearing from my next guest. Robyn Storms was a student of my 60 Days to VA course, and she's going to be talking to us about how she overcame the fear of starting the business once she was done with the course and ready to open her mouth and start her business. Let's go. Welcome everyone to a special episode of Call Me CEO, because we are still talking to one of my previous students from 60 Days to VA. And today we have the pleasure to speak with Robyn Storms, who started her own business last year, the Type A VA. And she's going to talk to us today about overcoming the fear of taking those first steps of starting your own business. And in this case, a virtual assistant business, which is what you can learn from my course. Robyn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Camille, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so fun because, when I'm doing the trainings, I get to see these beautiful people every week for weeks, and then I stop being able to see you. So this is a special treat. I can't wait to hear about how your business has grown.
It's been really exciting, and it's happened kind of quickly in a way that I felt like I started off pretty slow, but then as soon as I put it out there, boom, there was business. So that's good.
Yes. And I think that that's something where I get a lot of questions about, is there really enough work for me? Is there really a possibility for me to be able to build a business from home? And yes, there is work everywhere. I know that that's something that everyone worries about. And so that's what we're going to talk about specifically today for you, whether you decide to start a virtual assistant business with me, or if you decide that you want to start any kind of online business or a new venture. Let's talk about that fear. So Robyn, tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and then we'll talk about how your experience transformed your business.
Yeah, I'm married. I am a mom of 3. So I have a daughter who's 10. I have 2 boys, 8 and 6.5. Well, almost 9, I guess. So I have 3 children. Before kids, kind of worked in the corporate world. My background is more in SEO, if you know what that is, search engine optimization. So I did some agency work with that and did some internet marketing. And then when I started having children, I still, at the time, needed to work a little bit and also just wanted to work. So for my first child, I was still working, but they were able to let me kind of work from home some of the time and work in the office. And then I eventually was able to go down to part-time. My husband is in the tech field as well. So for a while, we moved out to the Bay Area. And at that time, I became an instant stay-at-home mom. And that was the first time I had been a stay-at-home mom full-time. And it kind of rocked my world a little bit. It wasn't something I was entirely used to. And even though I wanted to be there for my kids, I still felt this push and this pull to still have something that was mine. So I was able to off and on work part-time for other people and worked for other agencies. And that was great and was able to bring in some extra income and made me feel, again, like I had something that was mine. But after a while, I was kind of just feeling burned out from the type of work, and the subjects around it were kind of boring to me a little bit. And it was kind of just becoming mundane. And so I quit. I had a couple of small contract jobs that I quit in January of last year and kind of just wanted to find some time, figure out what my next step was going to be. My youngest was approaching kindergarten. So that was another thing that I felt like, well, he's going to be in school soon. So I still want something, but I'm just not sure if what I've been doing in the past was what I still wanted to do. So I followed you. I've been following you for a little while on Instagram. Just, we're kind of Disney kindred spirits that way. And I think that's how I first got onto your account. And I've just loved the content that you put out. And when you started talking about a VA business, it was something that intrigued me a little bit. I wasn't really sure right away if that was something I wanted to do, but you put out a free little business, like a day training of sorts. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but you did a little free one that I signed up for. And I learned a little bit more about what it was to be a VA. And then the more and more you kept talking about the course, I thought, maybe I'll just take it. And even initially, I wasn't really sure that taking the course was going to lead me down the VA path, but I had some kind of a side project that I've been wanting to launch a little bit. And I still haven't done that, but we'll see when I find the time. But I had this idea for a side thing that I wanted to do. And I thought maybe I could take this course and learn some tools and some different skills that could help me in that venture. And then as I started taking the course, and I started realizing that there were a lot of skills I already possessed from my corporate life, right? I had done a lot of SEO. I had done a lot of content management for some companies. Editing is a skill I love. It's kind of nerdy, but I'm like one of those, I can see a grammatical error like a mile away. It's like one of those things I instantly pick up on. It's probably the whole type A in me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started realizing that I actually have a lot of skills that I could turn into a business. So maybe, just maybe, I could go this route.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Here's the thing is that so often I think people think that they need to have this like earth-shattering thing that no one else can do, or you have to know how to do major analytics for something or have a really unique skill set. And while you can go down the route of having a specialty like that, which you can then increase your rate for, out the gate, you already have so many skills that I think you didn't realize. Like you said, the SEO that you've been in corporate, you know how to edit, and you are very organized. And those are all qualities and skills that many, if not all, entrepreneurs that I know are looking for help with. They all need it. And a lot of times it's just a matter of education, of telling them what you offer and how it works. Is that what you found?
Yes. I was going to say one thing that I found interesting is that, like you said, I think there's that kind of, you feel that imposter syndrome where you think there's a million people out there who can do what I can do. So what am I bringing to the table? What's going to make me stand out? And the other thing, this is something that I think we talked about in the course a few times, where these may be skills that these small business owners do have. Mm-hmm. It's not that they can't do them, but they don't have the time to do them. So that's where a VA is great, is because if someone is trying to scale their business and grow it, they're suddenly finding that I'm spending all this time answering emails and invoicing and all these kind of boring, mundane things that they don't really have the effort to put into as much as they'd like. And so, or they focus more on that and can't do the creative side of things. And so it's nice to, even though someone can do it, after a while, you realize you can't do it all. You don't have the time. So isn't it great that there are people there like VAs that can come in and fill those voids and those pain points for them and like help them with those areas where they just don't have the time to put in.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this episode, and if you had the chance to listen to Rachel's, I'm not sure that you did, but both Rachel and Robyn have those characteristics and skills where they are very detail oriented, very type A, where their zone of genius is in that organizational space, where I don't know about you for the entrepreneurs that are listening, but like, that is not my wheel of genius. Like, I love big picture. I love being out in front. I love sharing and like creating and envisioning. That's more my zone of genius, is being out in that space. And so I know for myself, I have to have VAs on my team to make the most of like being able to work on the business and not in the business, if that makes sense. And Robyn is now able to offer her zone of genius, just like you could if you're listening and thinking, well, I do have those organizational skills. I love systems. I love editing. Like those are that, like, if that makes you excited, like that is the zone of genius of a VA. And there are so many ways to take it, so many unique skills. And Robyn, you're very good in SEO, where in the interview I did with Rachel, she's like, I know nothing about SEO, nor do I want to. And that's okay.
For sure. Like everyone just brings their, their different, what they can offer. It's funny because I do have a creative side. And so sometimes I've always been like speaking of the personality test, right? Like I've always been even red, yellow on the Enneagram. I'm a 1-7, right? So it's like, I very much love organization and I love things in their place and I love processes and editing and those kind of things. But I think this is why I like being a VA too, is because then that 7 in me wants to have a little flexibility and have a variety of projects. And I consider myself, well, I used to consider myself more creative, I think, than I am now. But I think what it comes down to, my creativity comes from the detail. Like I'm not great at maybe creating sometimes, but I can look at an event or I can look at a flyer and I can tell you.
I lost your audio again. You're back now.
There we go.
That's so weird. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So you were saying that you like the creative and you like the structural. Here's what's really interesting about doing creative and business, or like more like structural system, whatever you'd want to call it, is that there are so many creative VA options as well. If you like to create music, there are people who are looking for music creators. If you like to do social media, templates and putting together digital graphics or, design, like there are so many creative aspects to being a VA as well. And so I like that you said that, is that it is so versatile and you can change it up and fit it to your needs of what you want to do.
Exactly. I like the variety that comes with being a VA. Like I said, you can kind of pick projects and you don't always have the luxury, I guess, of picking initially, but as things go down, I hope that's something I get to do, where I can be a little more choosy or pick more creative projects to kind of fuel that side of me as well. Like I said, sometimes that creative just shows itself in, show me a graphic, show me an event. And I joke a lot that I may not always I'm not the Pinterest mom in the sense that I put the ideas together, but I can take all of your ideas and throw a killer party, right? I can take the things you've put together and put them together as a whole, but I may not necessarily always come up with the ideas.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what I think it's so beneficial, because you can take on that role and alleviate so much stress. And that is huge. It's life-changing. I think everyone needs a VA, at least one. So I want to hear about your experience with taking the 60 Days to VA course. What did you like about it?
Well, one, I liked initially that I was like, oh, this is kind of self-regulated. I can go at my own pace. But of course, I found that keeping up with it was actually more beneficial because I wanted to be involved right in the Q&As that we were having. And that was great. I loved having people coming, the information you offered was amazing, but it was also great to have others in the industry come and speak to us about their experiences and what maybe they've used a VA for, or just in general, kind of marketing yourself and getting out there. And it just, I don't know, I just felt like in the end too, there were so many tools and things I still go back and reference. Sometimes I'll still go back on because we do get to have unending access to the course, right? Once we get it. So those times I'll go back in and go, oh, what was that tool for this? Or let me go back in. I have a discovery call coming up. Let me kind of go over the information Camille sent about that so I can make sure that I'm covering everything that I want to cover.
Yes, I love that. Yes, it's so good because you do have it as a resource. So as you're learning, you don't have to know everything all at once, but it's meant to be a resource library for you, as well as something you can go back to and say, oh, I am taking on a new client. What were those questions I need to ask? Or what was that, contract that you had? And I'm curious, I offered contracts available in the course, but I don't know, depending on your personality, contracts make a situation legal and they are in place so that if something happens, you can sue them. It kind of like binds you legally to them. So I'm curious for you, do you like to use contracts or not?
I do use them. I feel like it's just nice to have something in writing.
Official.
I ended up using the tool. I use HoneyBook. And I think that was what you had recommended. Yep. So I've been using that to keep track of kind of client hours and all my contracts are on there. So they have some contracts that are already set. I did read through it and tweaked things as I needed for my own personal, use, but if something was needed that way, but for the most part, yes, I like having contracts. I like having something in writing and I feel like it makes me seem more official too, versus just having, here's an email saying what we're going to do, right? This looks official. It makes me feel more legit.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's true that if you have something in writing where it's all about communication, making sure you're on the same page. And that's a really good way to keep those communication channels open. Okay. So I want to ask you, getting into the meat of overcoming the fear after taking the course. I know that you said you got started slowly, but I mean, in reality, you've been running this business now for 4 months and you say that you have more than enough work, which is incredible. So let's talk about overcoming that fear and how you were able to step into that boss CEO mindset.
Well, I think a lot of it was really just doing it, right? So when the course ended, I was kind of, again, the type A in me, that Enneagram 1, whatever, the red personality.
It's pausing your audio again. Oh, there you are. Okay. So start back to where you said the type 1 in me.
So yeah, the type A in me, the Enneagram 1, the red personality, I like having things in place before I move forward, right? It's that fear of, oh, I don't want to fail. So I'm going to make sure I did everything I can to make sure this succeeds, even though really there's no guarantee, right? So for a couple of months after the course ended, I was really just kind of slowly, going through and getting my tax things in order. And I would start posting things on Instagram but I wasn't really announcing it out to the world. I was just slowly kind of building up some things. And then I finally realized that, okay, I'm just going to announce it and kind of see what happens, right? I don't have everything in place, but things can evolve as they need to evolve. And I guess if I get a client, then I'll worry about some of these other things when I need to, right? So I had a few, like a scheduling tool in place and a few things like that, and just decided to jump. And so one day I just finally put it out there on Facebook and Instagram to my friends and family and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I would love your support. And instantly I had, people that were commenting and like, this is so great. You'll be so perfect at this. This is right up your alley. And then friends that I'd kind of forgotten or didn't realize would need help with this, but that had small businesses that were like, oh my gosh, like I've used a VA in the past. I would love to use you in the future. Or I don't need someone right now, but I'll keep you in mind. Or, I know someone who could use you. I'll send a referral. And suddenly I went from 0 to 3 clients, like within a week.
Wow.
And it just kind of, all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, this is real. Like now this is like a real thing. So that's, I guess what I could say is, don't be worried about, I guess, having it all together, right away. Something that I believe we talked about in class was, everybody kind of has to start somewhere. Everybody's new at something at some point in our lives. So I think that fear of not doing it was bigger than the fear of going forward. Like if I didn't do it, I'd never know. So why not just go for it and see what happens? And what's it going to hurt if I just put it out there and maybe I only get 1 client for a while and maybe I have 0 clients and then I can work on the other things I haven't put in place yet, but I have put it out there. If the universe wants me to have this as a job, then it'll work out. And so far, so good.
I love that. And here's what's so crazy about it is that I think that what's good about the course is that you have the mindset tools, you have the tactical tools, you have the trainings. But then what really is when the magic happens is when you transition into that space, when you step into that role and say, I'm doing this, I'm here, you announce it to the world, you make it real, so to speak. That's when you allow yourself to create that abundance in your life. And that goes with anything. That could be with any goal or thing that you have. It takes that action, that movement, that stepping forward. And I love how you said, what's the worst thing that could happen? So what if I start with 1? We're all starting as beginners. So 1 is a good place to start, but 3 in 1 week. That's what is so cool about being a VA is I think that there is really so much work available, especially if people know you, trust you, like you, and know that you're going to be a good job, which is obvious that was the response when you announced it to your people.
Yeah. All of my clients have either come from a referral from someone I already knew. Or like I said, one of my clients is actually a high school classmate that has a business now. And he reached out and was like, oh, we would love this. Like, I'd love to work with you. And I was like, great. Like, we haven't spoken that much other than Facebook occasionally before then. But suddenly I put this out there and now we're working together and it's going great.
That's cool. So with your pricing, do you have it set where you want it to be? Was it hard to put that out there, or did you just come out with it confidently and say, this is what it is, and it was fine?
That's been a work in progress too, I think, because in my mind, I had an idea of this is what I'd like to do. There was one that I did have to negotiate a little bit. She kind of wanted to come in a little lower. And I was at first thought, oh, I'm starting out. Should I just take this price because I am new? And then I thought, no, like I have these skills. This is something that I'm bringing to the table. So I came back and said, this actually is lower than I prefer. This is what I would like. And then she was like, okay. So she went with it. So in that case, it worked out. And if she hadn't, I guess it's one of those things where you kind of have to think, that's my time and how valuable is my time. I had promised myself too, that if I was going to go back into working and take that time away from my family, from my kids, that I wanted it to be worth it. And I didn't want it to be something where I was undervaluing my time, because it still is my time and I'm still bringing something to them. So I don't think I'm quite like, I'm at a point now where it's been a few months and I'm questioning like, okay, I've got some experience now. I feel like some of these are going well enough that maybe I'm at a point where I can say, hey, go back to them and how's this going? This is at a point where maybe I want to up my rates a little bit. I'm kind of still toying around with that. It might be too early still, but because I do think I went probably a little bit lower than I think I could. But again, because it was something I was new at, I didn't want to push the boat too much. But I think as you get into it, you realize more and more what you're bringing to the table and value of what your time is worth as well. And you don't want that to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. I think more often than not, we tend to underestimate what we can charge. But it also goes into play with, what do you feel good about? Because if you're just starting out, maybe you do want to start at something, and that is really, at the end of the day, it's up to you. But what is really great is that as you get busier and more confident, you can raise those prices and you're in charge of that. You get to decide at the end of the day who you bring on as a client and what your paycheck looks like in that regard. So I think that's really cool. If there was someone listening right now who is considering starting a virtual assistant business, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think it really comes down for me just back to the fear of it. Just do it. If it's something that you feel called to do, if you're feeling this push to, or even just realizing that you have skills that could be valuable to somebody, just jump in. Like I mentioned, like my husband works in the tech industry and he charges what I consider an astronomical amount of money, but people pay it, right? Because he has skills that they don't have. And that's one thing, kind of going back to the rates, is that, again, what's the worst that can happen? They tell you no.
Yep.
But you'll never know unless you ask. And oftentimes just jumping in with something and not worrying about if you have all your ducks in a row or everything where it needs to be, just start. And I feel like it's kind of evolved, like already in the 4 short months that I've had clients, I feel like I'm already learning, things that I want to change or how I want to evolve, or maybe where I want to go from here, kind of getting a better sense. Like, I don't think I'm where I'm at, like where I want to be yet, as far as that niche client. I'm still trying to pare that down and make sure I'm finding and maybe attracting the kind of work that I want to attract. I feel kind of like a broken record saying this, but again, I really just feel like just do it. That was something that with the course, I wasn't even certain it was something I was going to use for my own business. I thought, well, I'm in a place in my life where I'd like to learn some new things, and maybe this is just a stepping stone to something else. And obviously it was, but try it. I feel like there's so much good information in there. And whether you want to start your own business or you want to help other people's businesses or like I said, some kind of side project, there's so much goodness in that course. It's, you feel like sometimes a little overwhelmed because it's like, 6-7 weeks of just, information. So I think that's why it probably took me a couple months too, to kind of go through it slowly and process it and really do it on my time. And it worked out. But there's so much goodness in there. Like you gave us so many, not only just good information, but tools that we could use and documents and different things that we could tweak for our own self. And so, yeah, just a lot of good stuff, a lot of good
Awesome.
stuff.
Yay. Well, I'm so glad. And I think it's really cool to see where you are now, to see that progression. And I know 6 months, a year from now, you will be even bigger and better and doing amazingly well. So it just means so much to me that you'd be willing to come on and talk about it and share your experience and how you were able to overcome your fear. I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So if you are interested, you need a VA right now, you can find her at the Type A VA, and remind me how many periods there are in that on Instagram, just to make sure that
it's the Type A VA.
Okay. That's what I thought. So you can find Robyn on Instagram. And if you're thinking about taking the course, go ahead and find the link below. You can find more information. I can't wait to see you on the other side.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Station Park, who believes in women-led businesses that are changing the world. If you want a place to come visit to dine, shop, or connect with your loved ones, Station Park is only 20 minutes away from downtown Salt Lake City and has a gorgeous outdoor dining and shopping experience that you can walk among the shops and create memories that will last forever. If you happen to be in the middle of the square, Twig's restaurant is right there in the middle, one of my very favorites. You've got to get the pesto margarita chicken and end the night with the dipping donuts. Trust me, tell them I sent you. It will change your life. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you are interested in joining the 60-day to VA course, make sure to look at the link below to join now. Our group is going to be starting in just a couple of weeks. We already have people excited that have joined, and I cannot wait to see you there, to see you rocking your own business.